When we ask, is modern history hiding a forgotten Igbo state? We are not just chasing secrets buried in dust. We are confronting a deeper truth about how civilizations are remembered and how others are intentionally written out. And as we peel back the layers of time, we begin to see that what was lost was not a minor footnote, but a beacon of African ingenuity, resilience, and statecraft, whose echoes still shape the identity, dignity, and destiny of millions today. And in that revelation lies a call for every listener to rise higher, dig deeper, and reclaim what the world once tried to erase. Because when you examine the scattered fragments of ancient trade routes, linguistic footprints, migration patterns, metallurgical brilliance, and cultural continuity that stretch from the banks of the Niger to the shadows of the Cameroon highlands, you begin to see that the Igbo story was never a story of isolated villages, but a sprawling chapter of united communities, bound by a philosophy, a system of governance, and a social order so advanced that many modern scholars still struggle to explain how such complexity existed without kings. And yet the very absence of monarchy was the secret strength, an egalitarian model that shaped decisions through councils, assemblies, and the power of consensus. A model so rare in world history that even modern nations find themselves unable to replicate the harmony and shared responsibility that the Igbo not only mastered but lived out daily. And when you consider that colonial scribes, anthropologists with bias, and empires threatened by African autonomy wrote the textbooks that millions still read today, you begin to realize that the real question is not whether a forgotten Igbo state existed, but why powerful institutions found it necessary to bury it, distort it, or shrink it into something small enough to fit into their narratives of African inferiority. Yet history, real history, always pushes back through clues carried by time, and those clues reveal an intricate web of ancient Igbo settlements connected by commerce, ritual, governance, craftsmanship, and encoded traditions that served as a living constitution. And as we reconnect those strands, the forgotten state emerges, not as an empire erected in stone, but as a civilization built in people, intellect, and shared destiny, a union where every individual's voice carried weight, where authority was distributed, where justice was a communal duty, and where progress was a collective mission. And when modern historians, archaeologists, and cultural scholars finally began to scrutinize the overlooked evidence, Inari's sacred authority, Igbo-Ukwu's advanced metallurgy, the expansive trade networks that reached across West Africa, the encoded spiritual institutions that regulated peace, land, inheritance, and diplomacy, we begin to see that this was not a cluster of tribes, but a decentralized federation with spiritual capitals, economic nodes, and political protocols that shaped a region far larger than any map in a colonial textbook dares to admit. And in that revelation, something awakens within every person of African descent, something that says, your ancestors were not wandering people, they were architects of order, designers of sustainable governance, masters of metallurgy, philosophers of society, and champions of a system so advanced that its memory still survives in the hearts of their descendants. And that survival is not accidental, because a truth that powerful can never stay buried forever, no matter how many borders, books, or biases try to silence it. And so when you stand today as a child of African lineage, especially of Igbo heritage, you are standing on a foundation laid by people who understood the earth, who governed themselves with wisdom, who achieved prosperity without oppression, who forged unity without tyranny, and who built societies where power was never hoarded but shared, something the modern world still struggles to achieve. And when you hear the whispers of that forgotten state, you begin to understand that this is more than history. This is a blueprint for identity, confidence, and self-worth. A reminder that greatness is not something you strive to become, but something you inherit and activate. And as the evidence rises, as scholars uncover new artifacts, as oral traditions are reevaluated, as diaspora descendants reconnect with ancestral memory, the world begins to recalibrate its understanding of Africa, realizing that the continent was never a passive land waiting for discovery, but a constellation of nations and innovations older than many world civilizations and influential in ways still unfolding today. And when modern societies talk about democracy, equality, shared leadership, economic distribution, and the dignity of every individual's voice, they unknowingly echo the principles that once animated the forgotten Igbo socio-political universe, proving that the ideas the world celebrates today were being lived by Africans long before Europe understood their value. And in that truth, young Africans everywhere gain the courage to reject narratives that belittle their heritage, because you cannot be small when your ancestors designed systems modern nations still cannot you cannot be voiceless when your lineage comes from a people who built a civilization on the foundation of collective voice. You cannot see yourself as insignificant when the fragments of your story reveal a state that operated with intelligence, structure, and humanity that challenges the world's assumptions. And so the question transforms from is modern history hiding a forgotten Igbo state to why are we only now ready to hear the truth that Africa's greatness was not erased, it was recorded in codes, symbols, artifacts, tradition, and bloodlines waiting for descendants bold enough to uncover it. And that forgotten state is not just a historical entity, it is a living spirit urging our generation to rise, to reclaim our stories, to restore our pride, to rebuild our unity, and to reshape our future with the confidence of people who once commanded influence far beyond the boundaries of colonial imagination. And if you are listening today, let this message be a turning point, spark that tells you that history is not something written for you. It is something you must rewrite, re-examine, and reclaim, because when you stand tall in the truth of your origins, when you walk with the certainty that your lineage descends from builders of forgotten, your voice changes, your posture changes, your ambition expands, and the world begins to recognize that the descendants of a once hidden civilization are rising again, not with weapons, not with revolt, but with knowledge, identity, dignity, and the unstoppable resolve of a people reclaiming what is rightfully theirs. And as you move forward, let the memory of that forgotten state become the fuel that drives you to break every limitation placed on you, to challenge every false narrative spoken about you, and to become a living continuation of the brilliance history once tried to hide, because the truth is no longer buried, the truth is waking up in you. When we speak of a forgotten Igbo state, we are not simply discussing a chapter that slipped through the cracks of time. We are discussing a deliberate silence, a calculated shrinking of a people whose political design did not fit the templates European writers understood. The Igbo world was not chaotic, scattered, or leaderless, as early historians lazily described. It was a network of organized communities woven together by shared values, councils, age grades, market systems, judicial mechanisms, title institutions, and trade alliances that connected villages like veins carrying the same ancestral blood. What confused outsiders was the absence of a single king, a central palace, a golden throne, or an emperor demanding tribute. They assumed that without these symbols, civilization did not exist. But the Igbo had crafted something far more advanced, a decentralized republic, centuries before the word republic entered European vocabulary. Power in this system moved upward from the people, not downward from a crown. Every village was a pillar. Every family was a foundation. Every elder carried the weight of moral authority, and every titled man or woman rose through merit, not bloodline. It was a political philosophy so revolutionary, so counter-imperial, that those who encountered it struggled to define it, and because they could not define it, they chose to diminish it. They drew maps that ignored interwoven territories. They wrote books that described the Igbo as fragmented, and they dismissed the complex systems of governance as mere tribal customs. But when you step back from the colonial lens and listen to the land itself, the trade paths that link community to community, the shared rites of passage, the uniformity of masquerade structures, the spread of dialects like branches of the same ancient trunk. You see the outline of a state that was never lost, only unrecognized. You see a civilization built not on walls, palaces, or armies, but on participation, accountability, and collective identity. The map they hid from us is not made of paper. It is carved into the memory of a people who never needed foreign validation to govern themselves. The real borders were defined by marketplaces that synchronized economies across vast regions, by tidal societies like the Ozo that carried authority across distances, by judicial assemblies that settled disputes with precision, and by sacred traditions that traveled through generations like coded messages. It was a state that stretched as far as its values stretched, as far as consensus could travel, as far as the Igbo language could echo through forests and across rivers. And the reason it remained so hard for outsiders to classify is because it represented a form of freedom they themselves could not imagine, freedom from absolute monarchs, freedom from rigid hierarchy, freedom from systems that placed glory in one man instead of in the collective will of the people. It was a human-centered civilization that prioritized ethical leadership, responsibility, and community over domination and conquest. And because this structure did not serve the narrative that Africans needed European order, it was easier for colonial historians to describe the Igbo as stateless than to admit that the Igbo had engineered a political system more democratic than many modern nations today. But no system rooted in the people can ever be fully erased, because the people themselves become its living archive. The forgotten Igbo state survived not through monuments or imperial ruins, but through everyday life. It survived in the rhythm of town meetings, where every voice counts, in the sacred authority of elders who speak for generations, in the titles earned through discipline and sacrifice, and in the stubborn Igbo conviction that no one is too small to speak or too powerful to be questioned. This is why the world could not erase the memory fully, because it was carried in the character of its descendants. When you see Igbo communities today excelling in business, organizing self-help groups, forming unions in every city of the world, and making decisions collectively with fierce independence, you are witnessing the political DNA of that forgotten state, still alive and functioning. It is not a relic of the past. It is a shadow that still walks beside the present, a blueprint that still shapes how millions of people think, work, decide, and rise. To reclaim this forgotten map is to reclaim the truth that African civilization did not begin with colonial borders or end with European documentation. The Igbo state they hid from us was not a myth. It was a sophisticated socio-political reality that challenged the world's expectations. And every rediscovered artifact, every revisited oral tradition, every modern scholar who dares to look beyond colonial narratives is helping redraw the lines of a history that always belonged to the Igbo people. This is why understanding it matters, not just for culture, not just for pride, but because it reveals that a people who built their world on equality, shared power, and collective strength have always had the capacity to thrive, to innovate, to lead, and to rise, no matter how many times history tried to fold their story into the margin. The forgotten state was never truly forgotten. It lives in the resilience, intelligence, and unbreakable spirit of the Igbo people today. Every time a new artifact rises from the soil of Igbo-Ukwu, every time archaeologists brush away centuries of silence with the tip of a small wooden tool, the forgotten truth begins to glow again. Truth that was buried not by accident, but by the weight of a world that did not want Africa to be seen as a center of innovation, artistry, or sophisticated civilization. What lies beneath that dust is not simply metal or pottery. It is evidence of a society that understood beauty, complexity, and global interaction long before Europe wrote its first chapter about Africa. When a single bronze vessel emerges with spirals so precise they rival works from the highest known ancient cultures, the world stares in disbelief, questioning how a people described as primitive could cast metal with a technique so advanced that modern metallurgists admit they still struggle to replicate its mastery. Yet these were not accidents or isolated creations. They were the work of artisans nurtured by a cultural structure that prized excellence, that trained generations to see art as a form of communication, and that understood metallurgy as both science and spirituality. These objects point to something bigger than craftsmanship. They point to a forgotten political order, an economic system, and a worldview that allowed such brilliance to flourish. Each bead carved from distant lands, each foreign stone embedded in ancient ornament, each trade item discovered in burial sites, whispers of long-distance networks stretching across the African continent and beyond, proving that the Igbo world was connected, informed, and participating in global exchange far earlier than the world was willing to admit. But what makes the story powerful is how fiercely the evidence contradicts the old narratives. For every piece pulled from the earth, another colonial era lie shattered. The dust that once covered these artifacts was like a blanket placed there to hide the glow of a greatness the world did not want to acknowledge, because accepting that greatness would destroy the myth that Africa needed saving or civilized. The deeper you look at these discoveries, the more they reveal that the Igbo were not wandering communities stumbling through history, but intentional architects of social order. The burial chambers found in Igbo-Ukwu were not hurried places of mourning. They were engineered chambers built with mathematical arrangement, carefully organized layers, and symbolic placement of objects that shows sophistication in both thought and culture. These were not the works of a scattered people. They were the works of a society with structure, with hierarchy based on achievement, with a priestly order knowledgeable in cosmology, metallurgy, and ritual coordination. And when you consider that these artifacts date as far back as the 9th century, centuries before Europe entered its own Renaissance, you begin to see how distorted global history has been. The evidence beneath the dust does not simply speak, it challenges, it confronts, it corrects the world's assumptions about African intelligence and innovation. It tells us that Africa did not merely react to global events. Africa initiated, crafted, built, traded, and influenced, even when the world wrote otherwise. And each time a new artifact is uncovered, the silence breaks a little more, the forgotten rises a little higher, and the truth becomes harder to ignore. What makes this evidence even more powerful is not just what it shows about the past, but what it reveals about the resilience of the Igbo people themselves. Despite centuries of invasion, colonization, slavery, cultural suppression, and political fragmentation, the memory encoded in these artifacts never died. The world may have ignored it, textbooks may have skipped it, museums may have limited its display, but the land held onto it like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. These discoveries are not only archaeological achievements, they are ancestral vindications, proof that the people who stand here today did not descend from weakness or obscurity, but from a lineage of thinkers, artisans, innovators, and leaders. When you look at the precision of the metalwork, you see the precision of a people who valued excellence. When you examine the global beads, you see a people who understood trade and diplomacy. When you study the burial chambers, you see a people who understood organization and ceremony. The forgotten Igbo state is not found in ruins or palaces. It is found in the intelligence, artistic brilliance, and cultural coherence of the artifacts beneath the dust. And the more the world uncovers, the more it becomes impossible to deny that Africa had its own centers of knowledge, its own laboratories of innovation, and its own systems of governance that flourished independently of Western influence. But perhaps the most empowering part of all this is how these artifacts remind us that truth cannot be buried forever. Time may shift, soil may settle, but heritage has a way of calling out to be found. Every discovery is a reminder that what we call forgotten was never truly lost. It was simply waiting for eyes willing to see beyond colonial filters. These artifacts awaken a deeper understanding not just of history but of identity. They tell today's generation that their greatness did not begin in modern cities or contemporary achievements. It began centuries ago in communities that mastered metals, nurtured creativity, honored wisdom, and built systems strong enough to leave marks that no amount of suppression could erase. When you stand before an Igbo-Ukwu bronze, you are not looking at an object, you are looking at a message from the past saying, you were never small, your people were never behind, your story was never secondary. The evidence beneath the dust restores pride, heals historical wounds, and rebuilds the psychological bridges broken by generations of miseducation. It pushes the world to rethink Africa, but more importantly, it pushes Africans to rethink themselves. And as more discoveries emerge, the once muted voice of the forgotten Igbo state grows louder, speaking through bronze and beads, calling the world to finally acknowledge what the ancestors always knew, that brilliance is not invented by the future, it is inherited from the past. The story of the forgotten Igbo state is not just the story of a political structure erased from textbooks. It is the story of a people whose identity was too strong too adaptable, and too deeply rooted in community to ever vanish, no matter how violently history tried to silence them. What kept this ancient system alive was not a king, not a palace, not a monument carved in stone, but a people who carried their values in their bones and their memory in their breath. When conquerors came, they could break villages, but never break the collective will. They could redraw borders, but never redraw the sense of belonging. They could confiscate land, but never confiscate the internal compass that guided every Igbo person towards self-rule, dignity, hard work, and community-driven leadership. This is why the forgotten state survived, because its citizens transformed themselves into living archives. Instead of relying on royal bloodlines, they built leadership on merit. Instead of worshiping a throne, they worshipped responsibility. Instead of preserving history in scrolls, they preserved it in customs, proverbs, marketplace rhythms, age-grade systems, and unspoken codes of conduct that moved from generation to generation without losing their clarity. These values were like stones dropped into a river. They shaped the flow long after the stone itself disappeared beneath the water. And even when colonial systems attempted to suppress traditional governance, the Igbo spirit adapted, reshaped itself, and preserved its core principles beneath the surface, waiting for a future moment when those principles would rise again with renewed strength. The people who refused to disappear built their survival on the foundation of community. Every village was a fortress, not guarded by weapons, but guarded by shared understanding, by the idea that no individual stands alone and no leader rises above the people who made him. Titles were earned through integrity, generosity, and service, not inherited through privilege. Decisions were made in open gatherings where every voice mattered. Justice was maintained through councils that valued truth more than power. And because this model distributed responsibility instead of concentrating it, it was nearly impossible to destroy. If a king falls, a kingdom collapses. But if leadership is held by the many, the system becomes unkillable. This is why colonial administrators misunderstood the Igbo. They thought that without a central ruler, the people would scatter, but instead they witnessed a society that reproduced itself even under pressure. Each village standing like a replica of the next, each town carrying the same political DNA as its neighbors, each generation learning to walk in the footsteps of elders who knew that freedom and duty are two sides of the same coin. The forgotten state was not one capital city. It was a network of breathing communities whose strength came from their ability to unite without losing individuality, cooperate without surrendering autonomy, and rise without needing permission from anyone. The most remarkable part of this story is how these values endured even through the darkest chapters of African history. When the slave trade tore families apart, the Igbo spirit traveled with those who were taken, carried in songs, in memories, in practices of mutual aid that survived even in foreign land. When colonial rule dismantled councils, imposed foreign laws, and attempted to break the backbone of Igbo governance, the people simply shifted their strategies. What could not be practiced in public was preserved in private. What could not be written in books was etched into conversation. What could not be openly celebrated was carried quietly until the day it could be revived. This quiet resilience is the reason Igbo identity remains one of the strongest cultural identities in the world today. The people did not need a written constitution. They were born with one inside them. They did not need stone monuments. They built their monuments in the way they lived their lives, in the ambition that carried them into global success, in the discipline that fueled their industries, in the confidence that made them rise in every diaspora they entered. They refused to disappear because they refused to forget who they were, and that refusal became a shield that protected the essence of the ancient state, even when the external world changed beyond recognition. You can still see the footprints of that forgotten state today, in places where people believe they are simply practicing tradition, but are actually echoing a political genius that predates colonial empire. Every town union functioning in cities across the world is a modern version of an ancient assembly. Every age-grade group group organizing community projects is a continuation of a 1,000-year-old system of social responsibility. Every marketplace run with order, fairness, and collaboration is a living museum of the economic wisdom that once held entire regions together. Even the Igbo drive for education, business success, innovation, and independence is not modern. It is the same spirit that once built trade routes, metalworking centers, craft guilds, and diplomatic networks across pre-colonial Africa. This is what it means for a people to refuse disappearance. They do not simply survive oppression, they absorb it, transform it, and rise above it with the same cultural strength that has carried them for centuries. They do not wait for recognition, they create their own path. They do not crumble under pressure, they evolve and come back stronger, sharper, and more determined than before. The forgotten Igbo state lives today, not in ruins or relics, but in the character of its descendants. It lives in their boldness, in their refusal to accept inferiority, in their belief that progress is a personal and collective responsibility, in their insistence that leadership must be earned and that every human being holds value. It lives in their tenacity, in the way they rebuild after hardship, in the way they excel in every field they step into, and in the way they carry their cultural identity like a torch that refuses to be extinguished. When you look at the Igbo people today, at home or across the diaspora, you are witnessing the survival of a state that was never truly destroyed. It transformed from land into legacy, from structure into spirit, from a physical system into a cultural algorithm that keeps reproducing itself generation after generation. And this is the ultimate truth. No matter how strongly the world tried to erase that state, the people refused to disappear. They became the memory, they became the archive, they became the unbroken continuation of a history that will forever rise, no matter how many times others tried to bury it.